I recognize the member from Saskatchewan Rivers.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It's an honour to rise in my place today to reply to the throne speech. It's always a good opportunity to discuss family contributions to this job, as so many of my colleagues on both sides have said. I would like to thank my family members for their support and their love for keeping me grounded, so I may serve the people of Saskatchewan Rivers. Doug and I will be married 43 years tomorrow on November 1st. Our family has grown from 4 children and their spouses, and we now have 10 grandchildren, as Lacey and Seth had their second daughter, Camila Grace, this past spring, March 23rd. So now we have 6 granddaughters and 4 grandsons, Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker. And I'm very blessed and fortunate to have them in my life. They inspire me, challenge, and support me in many ways. Each has very different skills and passions, and I'm very, very blessed to have them in my life. At my Sask Rivers office, Donna keeps the office hospitable and warm, and the Sask Rivers constituency that I represent has the best tourism in the province in my eyes. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, last week's throne speech was typical for the Sask Party, patting themselves on the back for a job well done in years past, continually quoting achievements going back to 2007. This Premier had to rely on the record of Premier Brad Wall instead of his own from these past 5 years. The reality is, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the state of Saskatchewan has got poor health care, crime, taxes, the cost of living, the economy, or the state of rural communities is much to be desired. And as we've become accustomed to the party opposite, their throne speech was full of conservative talking points but Liberal spending and management strategy. They puffed themselves up by throwing money at the problems instead of addressing the deeper issues of management and efficiency that plague this government. The first troubling aspect of this government throne speech was their failure to include any mention of parental rights. The government used the word protect often in the throne speech, yet they did not acknowledge the continued need to protect parental rights. We just had an emergency session to pass parental rights legislation. This government was forced to adopt or lose their rightfully angered voting base. There is still work to be done on protecting parental rights, accessing the new legislation's effectiveness, and continuing to make it easier for parents to be involved in the public education of their children. Seeking parental involvement on the curriculum and reforms to it, while partnering with parents in this government's plan for education, unlike their 2030 education plan, which completely omitted parents. It was disheartening to hear that parental rights is no longer a priority of this government, considering it was omitted from the throne speech. It shouldn't surprise us, though. The government did not want to act on the issue and only did so when it was made politically impossible for them not to act. I was dismayed that crime was not even addressed in the throne speech, where there's protection for the most vulnerable, for our communities that are experiencing the results of record-high crime. The drug and crime epidemic that is plaguing our province should be one of the top priorities of this government. Are they not listening? Are they not reading the same reports? Their words about protecting our province are hollow, nothing but rhetoric with absolutely zero substance behind them. How can a government function allowing this level of crime? The basic function of government is to uphold the rule of law. Without it, we do not have a province. If a government can uphold its own laws, then it has lost its legitimacy to govern. If a government cannot protect its own people, it has failed its most basic mandate. Let me read the shocking statistics on crime in this province once again. Saskatchewan has the highest crime rate out of all provinces. It's double the national average. The crime rate for the province is at a 15-year high. The violent crime rate is the second highest in the country. Robbery and theft are now the second highest. Violent crime last year was the highest ever recorded in 25 years of the Crime Severity Index. Last year, youth violent crime increased by 30%. Non-violent crime is the highest in the country, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The homicide rate has been breaking record highs consecutively for 4 years in a row now. The homicide rate is the highest in the country. It is 3 times higher than Ontario and nearly 6 times higher than Quebec, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I continue to bring up these statistics in this Assembly because they're emergency-level numbers. This is the lived experience of the citizen this government represents. And yet, in the throne speech, they don't even acknowledge it. How ignorant of reality can they be, Mr. Deputy Speaker? Where is a comprehensive plan to tackle the escalating drug and crime epidemic? The omission of a clear strategy to address these urgent public safety concerns is a disservice to the people of Saskatchewan and leaves our communities vulnerable. Our communities are grappling with the devastating impacts of drug addiction, gang activity, and record-high levels of violent crime. I expect the government to prioritize by pressing issues in the throne speech and present a robust plan to combat the root causes of this crisis. Unfortunately, the government's speech failed to provide the necessary solutions and left Saskatchewan families without hope for a safer future. A comprehensive approach is needed to address the drug and crime epidemic. I call on the government to collaborate with law enforcement agencies, community organizations, and other stakeholders to develop and implement a comprehensive strategy that will ensure the protection and safety of all Saskatchewan citizens. Saskatchewan is facing unprecedented challenges due to a global economic downturn. Again, I was disappointed that the government did not offer bold solutions or concrete measures and investment in local manufacturing and value-added processing. It lacked a robust plan to promote and protect the agriculture sector, a necessity for one of the largest agriculture-producing provinces in Canada. I was disappointed but not surprised that there was no plan to reduce taxes or bureaucratic waste and mismanagement. With the ever-growing problems in agencies, the ballooning the size of the government, while the delivery of existing services continue to suffer, we have been pushing for tax cuts all year, from the PST to the provincial fuel tax, which is the largest tax on fuel in Saskatchewan, larger than the Trudeau carbon tax. Alberta, Ontario, and Newfoundland and Labrador have all cut their gas tax to alleviate pressure on residents at the pumps. Where is the Saskatchewan advantage, Mr. Deputy Speaker? We are the second largest oil-producing province in Canada, and yet our people pay the third highest province-wide provincial gas tax in the country. Why won't this government cut its taxes? They talk a big game. They love to put on the Conservative blue suit when they talk to the voters, but reality is this is a Liberal government run by Liberals. No tax cuts, bigger government, more bureaucracy, waste and mismanagement, exorbitant high crime, and an unwillingness to listen to their constituents, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It's been hollowed out by this government, whether it be poor roads, high tax burden, record rural crime, a decline in rural health and well-being, while everyone gets centralized into the cities. This government has all the hallmarks of a Liberal party. They just pretend to be Conservative to the voters. I was disturbed to hear in the government's throne speech a recommitment to being net zero by 2050. In all of my communication with residents across the province, they have been very clear. They do not want net zero. It is not in the interest of this province or our people. This government has made a show out of going against the Trudeau government's targets for carbon emissions by 2030. However, the Trudeau government has committed to the UN goal of net zero by 2050. Why is this government insistent on following the lead of the UN and the Trudeau government for net zero by 2050? The commitment is against the interests of Saskatchewan, our energy sector, our agriculture sector, our economy, and the livelihood of our people. Net zero is often confused with carbon neutral. However, they are quite different. Carbon neutral accepts carbon as a reality of a modern society and seeks in balance with carbon capture and absorption. Net zero, on the other hand, seeks to have no carbon emissions at all. The Fraser Institute stated the net zero mission will cause widespread economic and social harm. They go on to say the biggest sectors at net zero will be catastrophic is the oil and gas sector and the agriculture sector. These are the two pillars of our Saskatchewan's economy, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Net zero for Saskatchewan means our energy and agriculture sectors are gone. How is this protecting the interest of our province by our people? If this plan is allowed to continue, it will cause economic and social harm that will take decades to remediate. I will continue to hold this government accountable from this side of the House, promoting conservative values and standing up for the hard-working people of this province that this government has failed to protect. I will continue to pressure the government to adopt common-sense solutions on crime, provincial autonomy, parental rights, taxation and the cost of living, and health care reform. Our beautiful province, Saskatchewan, deserves a government that understands how to protect its citizens, its critical sectors like agriculture and energy, and puts Saskatchewan first, without entangling us in out-of-province agendas like net zero by 2050. The Saskatchewan people deserve a government that listens. The Saskatchewan people acts and prioritizes the needs of its citizens, Mr. Deputy Speaker. For those reasons, I cannot support this government's throne speech, and I will be voting against it. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would be amiss if I didn't mention my constituency assistant, Donna. Donna looks after the office, and she's so great in the office. She listens to all the people from across Saskatchewan that call in. For many years now, people of Saskatchewan have been telling us that their MLAs are not getting back to them, or they're laughing at them for some reason. Instead of talking about highways and social services, I even had a fellow from SGI, from Saskatoon, bring his SGI problems to me because his MLA from Saskatoon would not listen to him. I have people from all over Saskatchewan coming. So we've kept our office open. And I do appreciate all the constituents from across Saskatchewan that call in, email. Out of 61 constituencies, I'm glad I kept my office open during the last few years. So thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for the opportunity. And again, I say I will not support the government's throne speech, and I will be voting against it. Thank you.